Today I'm going to show you how to make a custom inventory heads-up display for your character stats. This is an alternative to a leaderboard. It only shows your stuff, and you can make it go away. So if I hit the C key, or whatever key you want, right? I'll show you how to do that. Goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back. There you go. And then it'll update when you collect stuff. So we'll make the pickups 2, just so that you get an idea how to do it. Gold is 10, grass is 3, grass is 4. Let's go ahead and get started with making our custom heads-up display. Let's start out with making our user interface. So I'm going to go over here to Starter GUI. I'm going to hit the plus. Under frequently used, I have something called a screen GUI. If you don't have it, you can do SCR and then it'll pop up, right? Subsets the list. Screen GUI. I'm going to do that once again for frame. I have that under frequently used. There we go. And then I'm going to name this stats frame. And I want this stats frame to have an anchor point here because I want to put it right here. But you could put the frame wherever you want. I just like it over here on the right. So let's change this anchor point on our stats frame. We're going to go down to where it says anchor point. And I'm going to make the X value a 1. That's the first value. And the Y value a 0.5. Enter. And that moved my anchor point from here to here, which is going to make it easier to line up over here. So let's do that. Let's go to, how about position? I know this is pretty small, so that's why I'm kind of calling them all out. You can open up position. You have an X and a Y, or you could just put the numbers in a row. The first number is going to be scale, which is the size of the screen GUI in percent between, not percent, but decimal percent, right? Between 0 and 1. I think I'm going to make the X 1, and then the pixel offset 0, and then the Y 0.5, pixel offset 0. Boom. That's where I want it. I am going to change the size also. So if you go down a little further, you'll see size, and I think I'm going to change this first or the second number that says 100. I'm going to change it to 200. You can play around with the size however you want. Then maybe instead of 100 on the Y, the pixel offset on the Y, I'm going to make that 80. There we go. And I think I'm going to make the background transparent too. So I'm going to scroll up and then background transparency. Let me pull this out a little bit. Just go ahead and make that a 1, which means it's fully transparent. On the stats frame, I'm going to hit that plus, and I want to add a UI list layout. So when I add other frames to my stats frame, it's going to go in order. It's going to go into a vertical order. Let's do that now. Let's hit the plus on the stats frame, add another frame. There we go. And this one, maybe I'll call this the header frame, right? It's going to have the item and the number. Let's change the size of our header frame, go down to where it says size, right? And then I'm just going to put a 1 for 100% of the parent, the size of the parent, which is the stats frame, 0 pixel offset, and then I'm going to do a 0.25, a 0.25, because I'm going to have 4 rows, so the size is going to be 25% of the parent frame, which is the stats frame on each row, right? There we go. Now that's pretty thin. I think I'm going to make my stats frame slightly bigger, especially for the video. You can't really see it. So at the stats frame, on the size, I have it as 0, 200, 0, and 80. I think I'm going to make that last number. How about 100? I'll make it a little bigger. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's go with that. Let's go down to our header frame. We are going to make this transparent. Should we do it now? Let's do it now. Transparent 1. Let's add a UI list layout to this. UI list layout. No, we can't see it, right? But if you click on it, you can see it. I'm going to add a text label. Text label's too big. Let's change that. Let's go, how about, what is that? Title label, item label. Let's call it item label. And then we're going to have the count too. How about we make the color dark, right? The background transparency for that, you want to try like 0.5. That's good. Let's go down here a little bit. Size. Well, we want to make it about 50. We want to make it exactly 50% of the header frame. So the first number, I'm going to do 0.5, comma, 0 pixel offset. This is for my X. And then 100% of the Y of our header frame, 1 and 0. Now we could change our text so that we could see it. You can't quite see that label, right? So let's scroll on down here, and it's Sans Pro, Source Sans Pro. I'm gonna make it bangers, and then instead of label, let's call this item. This is gonna be the header. Still can't really see it, right? So let's go to the text color 3, make it like a light color. Cool, kind of small. Should we make it like 20? Font of 20, little bit better. How about text stroke color? That's good at black, but the text stroke transparency is 1. If I hit like a 0, it's going to put like a little outline. It's not going to show up much on this one, but I'm going to make the actual items like a more transparent, and it'll show up a little bit better there. That's pretty good. Now I can duplicate this. Here, let me click over here. I could duplicate this, but I don't want to duplicate it and then have it list vertically. I want to go to my UI list layout. And then for fill direction, I want it to go horizontal. And now when I go back to my item label and I duplicate it, boom, it pops up over there. Now this one's not going to be item label. This is going to be the values, the counts. How about we say CNT for the count label? And we got to change that text too, but we don't have to change that much more. Where is our text? Let's go down. Item. Instead of item, let's just do like a hashtag for the number. Now I'm going to keep track of 3 things, gold, grass, and wood. So let's duplicate our header frame, Control D, right? And then I'm going to make this, how about gold frame. All right, then we're going to open that up. We're going to make a few changes, and then we're going to duplicate that again. So this count and item is fine, except the text itself. Maybe the color too. So text color 3, it's gold. Let's make it yellow. And then instead of item, let's say gold. And the transparency, I'm going to make it a little less, right? Because these are actual items, not the header. We'll go up here. Oh, we got to go up close to the top. And instead of 0.5, how about 0.8? That's pretty good. And then for the count, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll make that 0.8. And then change the color, right, to gold. And you don't have to make it fancy. You can make it however you want, right? And then let's see. That's good, but I think I'm going to initialize that to 0. Where's our little hashtag? Here it is, under text. Make that a 0. Cool. Now this, I'm going to duplicate it twice. I'm going to do a Control D, right? And that's going to be, how about grass? Make another one for wood. So right click, and how about duplicate? And then let's call this one wood. Make the appropriate changes. I'll open up the one for wood. We could change the color. You can keep them all one color, right? But for text, you're definitely going to have to rename it wood. And then I'm going to go with a brown for this, I think. There we go, or a brownish color. Cool. And then for the count, I'm also going to go with a brownish color. Sweet. Let's go to our grass. Open that up. Item. How about green, right? I'll make it bright green, even though our grass isn't that bright green, right? And then we'll do grass. Cool. And then the count color. Right. That's not looking too bad. Where do we want to put our script to update all this? How about right under the screen GUI? We'll go right to screen GUI, hit the plus, and then I'm going to add a local script, right? If you don't see it, LOC local script, or otherwise known as a client script. It's going to run on the client side. How about stats, player stats? That should work. Nice and descriptive. Let's get our hotkey going first, right? We don't have anything on the server yet we can update, so we can implement our user input service to make it go away and stuff. I'll say game get service, user input service. And I made the hotkey a C, but you can make it whatever you want, right? So user input service, input began, connect. I have this function right here. Input's going to be the key you hit or the type of input that you're going to capture, and then we're going to have this game processing event that I'm not going to do anything with, but you might, like if you're going to use like the tab key or something, you might have to play with that. So if input, and then we'll say key code, we're going to look for the key code equals the enum, equals the enum, equals the enum, key code, and you could see where you can pick all different types of keys, right? You got all kinds of stuff, right? We're going to go with C. I'm going to go with C. You pick what you want. And then we'll say, let's get, a stats frame. Let's make it invisible or not visible. So I'm going to get a variable for my stats frame up in the top, call it a stats frame. And I'll say equal to script. We'll go up to the parent, which is the screen GUI, and then we're going to wait for child. Got to make sure it's added. We'll say stats frame, right? Now, when we have that, we could say stats frame visible equals not stats frame visible, and that will toggle it visible and not visible. Let's try this out. Let's hit the play. Go view output, make sure there's no scary red errors. And then if I hit the C key, boom, it goes away. C key comes back, goes away, comes back. That's pretty cool. All right, turn that off. And then I'm going to close my output window. Let's head on over to server side. How about server script service? Hit the plus, add a regular script, right? If you don't see it, SCR regular script, or otherwise known as a server script. This is where we're going to keep our data for our players. And when we get data, we're going to store it here too. I'm going to call this game MGR, game manager, right? I'm going to get rid of this print, and I'll get the players service. So local players, that's my variable for game : get service players. I'm going to make a function, a local function called add player data. How about that? Add player data. This is going to be very similar to the leader stats. I'm going to use the same methodology. In fact, you could actually put leader stats here. Leader stats can go here, can go here. That's a comment, right? So the computer's not going to see that. But for you guys, if you want to add leader stat stuff too. Now, how about a little note here, a little comment, player data for HUD, right? For your inventory and stuff like that. Let's say local data, that's my variable for the data. We'll say instance new. It's going to be a folder, and the folder is going to be on the player. And then I'll say data.name. We should make it a little more descriptive than data. I'm just going to call it like P data, short for player data. And we're going to put some stuff on that. I'm going to move my code up a little so we have some more room. This is just like the leaderboard stuff, very similar, except we're calling it P data instead of leader stats. How about gold? You want to call it gold, variable for gold. Instance new. It's going to be an int value like 1, 2, 3, 4. Data, this variable, which is also called P data. Is that confusing? Should we call that P data like that? So that you don't get confused? There we go. P data. Because you're going to use the variable name, not the name, not that name property. All right. And how about gold dot name? We're going to give it a name, gold. And then you can initialize it too, right? You can initialize it to 0. I don't think I'm going to do that because default is 0. Let's go ahead and copy this, Control C. Remember, we're going to have 3 of them. So we'll say gold and then grass. You put this in any order too. Grass. It's also going to be an int value. Maybe we'll call that grass. Right? And don't forget to change this. Control C, Control V. Right? Number one way of causing errors is copy and pasting like me. Right? There we go. And this one's going to be wood. All right, wood with a capital. And then I still have it in a buffer, so I'll do a control V. Oops, no, I don't have it in the buffer. Control Z, wood. Nice. Yeah, that's good. And then I'm going to scroll down a little more. I'm going to make another function. That one, using the player service, I'm going to get the player added event. I'm going to connect that to a function. Player is going to get passed in because that's the nature of the player added event. And we're going to get our add player data, and we'll do player. And then I'm just going to tell you something. If you're storing stuff off, you're going to do that. You're going to do that in the player added, but be careful because database storage is really slow. So if you have your character added and your database stuff, even though it's asynchronous, the call takes a long time, right? So you could do like database stuff here, but just be careful. You might want to have your player added before database stuff. So we'll say data store is what you usually call it. Data store stuff here, right? And then you might get some data back. We could pretend that we got data back, right? And it will say P data. Is that what we called it? P data. And gold is going to be one of our properties, right? Because we have our P data, and then the P data, you have gold on it. So we could initialize it. Let's pretend we got stuff back from our data store, and we already had like 8. And then maybe for pdata.wood, we had a few pieces of wood, right? 8 and 2. All right, now when we play this, we won't really see anything, but you should play it just to make sure. I can show you where you'd see something, just to make sure we don't have any errors. View output, that's cool. And now I'm going to close this. I'm going to go over to the player service. I'm going to look under Simtech Gamer 7. Ooh, look at that. P data, gold, grass, wood. Wood has a value of 2, and gold, we gave it the value of 8. We did nothing with grass, so it defaulted to 0. So you could check to make sure it's here. If you had a leaderboard, you would see that under the player service player. Nice. Turn this off, and I think we're good right here. Now let's make our pickups. And come on over to our workspace, and we'll add some pickups, right? We got a few. I'm going to go to Home tab. Just going to add a part, and I'm not going to bother making a coin. I'm just going to call this gold, right? And then we'll change the color so we can see the difference. Make it like yellow, and then instead of plastic, maybe we'll make that metal. Yeah, metal. Nice. On the gold, I'm going to add the scripts manually. You could use the collection service for this, but adding it manually, if you don't know how to use a collection service, is a fine way of doing it. I'm going to call this pickup. And then get rid of that print statement. I want to make my script general so that it just tracks the name of the item, and I don't have to change the script for different types of pickups. So for my variable, I'm going to say local, just call it loot, right? Loot, it will be script.parent. And then the players, whoops, do a S on that. We're gonna do game get service, players service, and then we'll get our item. And that's going to be the loot.name, right? And let's get a debounce flag because we're going to respawn them. Let's call this can loot. We'll set that to true initially. We'll get our loot.touched event, connect that to a function. The other function will be on part. We'll check to see if maybe the part that's touching our loot is a character. Maybe we'll call it maybe char, right? So we'll say maybe char. Is it a char? It might be the base plate or a beach ball or something, right? Like that. So we'll say other part parent, but if it's a foot, the parent will be a char. If it's like a ball, the parent might be the workspace, right? So we'll say maybe char. We're not sure if it's a char. And then we're going to get a player or not. We might get a nil, but we don't have to call it. We don't have to call it maybe player. You get the idea. You could if you want. Let's get the player's service, and then we'll say get player from character. Maybe that's a char. If it is, it's going to return a player. If it's not, it's going to return nil. So we'll say if player exists, and then let's just make sure that the player has P data, right? And then also we could check to make sure that the player dot P data actually has the item, right? Because it might not have the item. You might have forgot to put like wood or grass or whatever. And then also we'll look at our debounce, can loot. Then can I get that all on one line? Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. All right, can loot. So if all those things are correct, then we're going to say can loot will be false temporarily. We're not going to be able to pick it up. We're going to make the loot transparency equal to 1 so we can't see it. And then can collide, we'll turn can collide off on the gold. All right, so, but it's not off now. We're just going to have to remember to do that so you don't bump over invisible stuff. So we'll get the player, and then we're going to say P data of the item, right, that's going to be on our player. We'll get the value and then add 1 to whatever the old value is. That's what that plus equals means. It means get the old value and then add 1. Or you can do 5 or something like that. Grass might be worth more. It might be bigger. Let's put a print statement in so we know what's happening though. Let's say print item equals, and then we'll list the item to make sure the name is right. And then we'll say the count equals, and this is going to be the current count that the player has. So we'll say player P data item dot value, right? And that'll be good for troubleshooting. And then we're going to get this task dot delay. We're going to bring the item back, and I'm just going to make it 5 seconds, but you could put a random number generator so that it pops up at a random amount of time. We'll put a function in here which will trigger the can loot to be true at some point, 5 seconds for us, and then we'll get the loot dot transparency and we'll make it visible again so people can see it. That should be pretty good. Oh, let's go back to our workplace. And then for gold, let's make our can collide false so we don't step on it and pop up. Oh, anchor it too. If you're going to make can collide false, you make sure it's anchored. Can collide false. Cool. That way when it's invisible, you don't jump over and stuff like that. And I like pickups to be can collide false anyway. All right, we're going to hit play. And we're going to go view. We're going to go output. This isn't going to update yet because we don't have code there, but we should see it down here in the output window. Boom. Gold count 9. And that's good because we initialized it to 8 with our pretend data store, if you can't see that. Nice. All right, let's turn this off. We can shut that down and we can make a few more pickups. So I'll just do a control D on that gold, home, move, do a couple of them, right? I want blue, control D, right? And maybe make a grass, control D, just move that over. All we have to do is change the name, right? Grass, but it's got to be spelled the same as in the player data, right? And you don't have to do anything with the pickup. We should make it a different color though. How about like green? And then the material, maybe we'll make it like leafy grass. Cool. Control D, and then let's add some wood, right? There's another one. Then a control D. We'll say wood, right? So the name has to be the same as what you have on the P data. Just remember that, right? And we'll do W for wood. There it is, wood. Control D. Cool. Now we can do another little test. Make sure that we're updating wood and grass. So we hit that. Let's go to our view, output. Cool. Gold is 9. Grass we did not initialize, right? So that should be 1. That should be 2. Yep, grass count is 2. Wood we gave it 2. There we go. So now it's 3. Now it's 4. And they'll come back in 5 seconds. All right, then just put different numbers in there, like a random number generator, if you want it to come up randomly at different times. Let's turn this off. Go ahead and get rid of the output window. Let's go back to our player stats, this local script right here on the screen GUI. We're going to open that up. I am not going to use a remote event for this. I'm going to use the changed event on the items. You can detect changes on the server and pick it up client side. You just can't initiate a change from the client to the server, or you'd need remote events. Although I usually use remote events for both, but you don't need to. Most people like to do it this way, so that's the way I'm going to show. No remote event. We are just going to detect the changes on the server on client side. So we have our stats frame. Let's get, what do you want to call it? Gold frame. I think I had a coin before, but we'll say stats frame. And we're going to wait for child. You should see, oh, I think I did call it. Did I call it gold frame? Oh, I did call it gold frame. That's good. Gold frame here, right? It's down here, that gold frame. All right, we're going to do one for each. We're going to get one for the wood frame. And I know that there's more sophisticated ways of doing this, but this is nice and simple, and a lot of people will know how to do it, right? So we'll say wood frame, and then we're going to get our grass frame. Right, these are the rows on our HUD, on our overhead display. Grass frame. All right, now that we got the frames, we want to get the counts for them, right? The labels are fine. They're just going to say gold, grass, and wood, but the counts are going to update. So let's get the gold count, right? And that's going to be on the gold frame. I'm also going to wait for child, and then we'll do, count label. That's nice. So I kept it so that we don't have to do too much typing. Control C, Control V, that's going to be for wood, that's going to be for grass. You can do it in any order, right? Wood count, and this is going to be the wood frame. Wood frame, this is going to be the grass count, and that's going to be the grass frame. And we just called it count label for both. Did we call it count label? Yeah, we did. Count label. Count label, count label, count label. Good. All right, what else? Let's get the player service. So we'll say local players and then game get service players, because we're going to get our local player, because we got to get the data. We got to get the data from the local player. You can't change the data on the local player inside the player service there, the way we have it, but you can get the data, right? So we'll say player, players, local player, and then you want to get a sound? We should do that. Let's go over here. And I don't even know why I brought that up. We could have found a sound without being in the workplace, but let's do that. Let's go here. And then we'll say audio, and I think I saw something like pickup or gem pickup. And here it is. I saw it. Gem pickup. I like that sound. There we go. Cool. Let's go over to, I think I'm going to put it right on my player stats. So player stats, local script, under the screen GUI, select it, and then hit insert to pop it in there. If not, you could drag it around, right? You could drag to where you want it. Close the toolbox. Let's go back to our player stats script. You could click on it, or I had it open. That's all right. Let's get our variable for the sound. I'm just going to have one sound for all of them. So we'll say sound, and this is a script. Wait for child, gem pickup. And when the player enters the world, I think what we should do is initialize our values. So we have the gold count, right? Text. And that's going to have, equals the player's p data. Oh, it didn't help me on that one. P data.gold.value, right? Just get everything initialized. There we go. The one's going to be for grass. And then this is going to be grass. And then this is going to be wood. Right? This is going to be wood. And this is a good test right now to see if we get initial data. Let's do this. Let's do play. And then view output, right? So our gold was initialized to 8. That's good. Grass was 0. Wood is 2. We don't see any scary errors, although we're not updating yet, right? And we're not even playing our sound. That's all right. We're going to fix that right now. So turn that off, shut this down, go back to player stats. What should we do? Come down here. I'm going to say player.pdata, pdata dot gold dot changed. I'm going to get the changed event that's fired off of our p data and then connect that to this anonymous little function right here. Player's going to get passed in, and you want to do a print. We could do a print. I'm feeling lucky. Let's just do a gold count dot text equals the value. Oh, not that value. This is wrong. That's the value, right? So when gold changes, the value is going to get passed in, not the player. It's getting a little bit ahead of myself. And then let's do a sound colon play, and that's going to be our little chime, right? That's good. If it doesn't work, we'll put print statements in. Then that's a good way to troubleshoot. Let's do another one for grass, right? GRASS, and then down here this is grass count. This one. Control C, Control V, probably faster to type it. What else? Wood, right? We got one for wood. Control C, Control V. Right, so this is firing on the client, but because of a server-side action. That's why it's going to work on the client. You can't go back the other direction, right? Because of exploits. They don't want to give the client too much power to change the server. You could do it for like animations. You can change your own animations. That's about it. Probably a few other things. Looking good. All right, so we got one for wood count. We got one for grass count. Got one for gold count. Let's do it. Let's hit play. We might be done. There we go. Output window. Straight. Oh, 9. Awesome. Let's see if grass is 1. Grass is 2. Wood should be 3. Yep. Nice. And you can get rid of those print statements if you want. Now, this is going to lend itself really easy to our saving the data, right? Because we have everything in this. Let's go ahead and close this. Go back to Game Manager. All right, this is where you would initialize the data. And then you do a player removing to save the data off, or you could do periodic saves. All right, that's pretty good. I think this would be pretty handy, a good alternative to the default leaderboard if you don't want everybody's scores up there. I will see you in the next video.